Bo here from perfectlyatpeace.com. Today I want to teach you how to quiet your mind in 5 seconds or less. Now, if you're anything like me, you may have realized by now that your mind is more of a hindrance than a help. Your mind is usually just something that sabotages you. It makes up negative thoughts and judgments, and it has fears about the future and worries, and it has resentments about the past. And this thing, it never seems to shut up, right? And it usually gets in our way. And if we could just learn how to quiet our mind at will, we would have a skill that would serve us greatly in life. Because anytime when you find yourself in stress or fear or a negative emotion of some kind, you could quiet the mind and bring about a state of peace. And if you could do that at will anytime you needed to, and you got really good at it, then you would become immune to the problems and challenges that most people face. Because you would have a tool, an inner process, to deal with those emotions that come up in the moment and to dissolve them, to get rid of them. So this is a very valuable skill to have, and I'm going to teach you a very simple way to master this today. So a lot of people try very hard to quiet their mind through things like meditation. And meditation is a helpful practice. I'm not against meditation. But the problem is you might meditate for, say, 20 minutes and you feel very peaceful and relaxed for 20 or 30 minutes, maybe an hour. But what happens when you have to get up from that meditation and you have to go do the things in the world that you need to do? You have to go to work, you have to take care of the kids, you have to do a lot of things in this world. What happens is usually the stress comes back, the negative feelings come back, the worries come back. All of that stuff comes back into awareness, and we can't meditate. We can't sit down and meditate and do nothing for 16 hours every day of our waking lives, right? We have stuff to do. So how can we bring the benefits of something like meditation into our every moment of our lives, our everyday waking experience? So how can we, say, meditate 16 hours a day? Is that really possible? And yes, it is possible, but you don't need to sit down and close your eyes and hum. You don't need to do that kind of meditation to get the same benefits of meditation. There's actually a way that you can train your mind to be in a state of peace, in a state of meditation, you might call it, all day long. If you pay attention to your mind, you'll see that your mind is very focused on content, meaning it's very focused on things, situations, circumstances. It's focused on specifics, right? What does your mind tend to do? It tends to focus on specific people, specific events that are happening in the world, specific outcomes that you might think are going to happen in the future, specific things that happened to you in the past, specific things that other people said to you, specific objects, specific goals. It's very focused on specifics, on content, on things, right? And that creates a degree of stress in our lives, because when the mind is focused on things and objects and circumstances, it thinks that it needs to do something about them. It wants to change things. It wants to control things. It wants to make things different, right? So the mind is sort of always in a state of non-acceptance. It's always trying to change and control and manipulate things. And that's what happens when we have a narrow focus, a specific focus on things. So the antidote to this way of focusing is to have a wide focus, to focus on context rather than content. So I'll teach you a simple way to do this. You can do this just with your physical environment. So notice how the mind, when you scan through the room, when you look at the things around you, notice how the mind wants to point out and focus on specific objects. It says cup, table, chair. It wants to focus on something specific and label it. That's a pillow, that's a cup, that's a table, and it's always focusing on the things in the room, right? It's focused on the objects, the things it can see, the things that are physical, you might say. But what if you switched your focus to focusing on the non-physical, the non-things? Focus on the empty space rather than the things themselves. So this is what you might say is focusing on context rather than content. The content is the physical things in the room, but the context is the empty space, you might say, that makes up the whole room. Without the empty space, the context, the things in the room, the content could not exist. So the content depends on the context. So focusing on the context is more like a relaxed sort of attention. It doesn't take any effort, and therefore there's no stress involved. So I want you to just practice this right now. First, focus on things in the room. See the objects, see the physical things. But then, relax your attention and try to just become aware of the empty space that surrounds all things. Become aware of the totality of the entire room. And don't focus on any one specific object, but focus on everything simultaneously. So it's not really a focus, I would say. It's not like an effortful focus or concentration. It's the opposite of that. It's a relaxed awareness. So you relax your focus and you just become aware of the bigger picture. Become aware of the empty space that surrounds all things. Become aware of the totality of the room, and become aware of everything simultaneously rather than focusing on one thing in particular. So if you practice this, you'll quickly see that your mind becomes quiet when you do this. You'll quickly start to feel a sense of ease, a sense of inner peace when you do this. And then you'll see that inner peace is only a decision away at all times, because it's only a result of how you're focusing your mind, whether you have a narrow focus or whether you have a wide open focus. And I want to point you to a resource actually, because there's something that I think will help you understand this a lot better and apply it in your life in a practical way. There's a book called The Open Focus Brain, I believe. I don't remember the author, but the book is called The Open Focus Brain. Now, I highly recommend you go buy that book. It might be on Audible. You might be able to get the audio version. I'm not sure. But give that book a read, because it goes into more detail about the science of this and how when you switch your focus from narrow to wide, as I just sort of explained, when you do that, it actually changes your brain waves, and it shifts your brain waves from what's called beta brainwave frequency into alpha brainwave frequency. And alpha brainwaves are the brainwaves that can be seen when people are in deep states of meditation. So actually, you can put your brain into a state of deep meditation without even sitting down and meditating, just by simply changing the way you focus your mind and switching from a narrow focus to a more vast, wide, open focus, focusing on the context of things rather than the content. So focusing on the bigger picture rather than the specifics, focusing on the empty space, you might say, rather than the objects. And the wider you can get your focus, then the more of the context you can become aware of, the more and more at peace you will feel. So just practice this, get that book, The Open Focus Brain, and let me know in the comments if you found this helpful. And you can post your questions if you want me to answer one of your questions in a future video. I'm happy to do that. But just practice this for a few minutes. Just practice what I just explained, becoming aware of the context, the empty space, being aware of everything simultaneously rather than focusing on anything specific. And just practice that for 5 minutes. And you will, I guarantee it, if you do that, you will find yourself in a very deep state of peace, a very relaxed state. And then you will know that you have the power to focus in this way in any moment of your life. So whenever you're feeling stressed, whenever you have negative emotions come up, you just have to remind yourself to switch from narrow to wide focus, or narrow to open focus. And that simple reminder can trigger that decision within you, and that can help you overcome any emotional challenges that you're facing in any moment of your life. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, just give it a like, share it with someone that you think would benefit from this. I would really appreciate that, and I'll see you in the next video.